Otherwise, we'll get two versions. The meeting is now being live streamed then over on YouTube. Hello, Jennifer and James. People still joining us. And yes, Expats Portugal's website has migrated and is up and running. So expatsportugal.com. Thanks everyone for bearing with while that was happening. And you'll see you might want to look at it. Don't replace the Expats Portugal website in the browser. Keep Zoom open and you can have a little look at the new website while we're talking over here. And we are now live on YouTube. So anyone on YouTube who wants to ask questions or throw in comments for this, the best place to live in Portugal semi-final, where Hank representing Porto will take on Trevor in Lisbon representing Lisbon. And Jerry is going to toss a coin for us to see who goes first with 10 minutes each. Certainly you get a guaranteed 10 minutes each, and there'll be time for people to ask questions and for you to respond to them as well. So let's see who's going first this evening. And can we have a toss of a coin? Thank you, Jerry.
Done the tossing. Who wants to call?
Tossing is complete. Who wants to call? Trevor, why don't you call, heads or tails?
Let's go heads.
Bad luck, Trevor, or maybe good luck. Hank, you're up first.
I'm up first.
Or Hank gets to choose. He can elect for Trevor to go first. So what's your preference, Hank? The position of control.
I'll go first.
Okay. So thank you very much for being here and representing Porto. I imagine your research has been extensive. Mm-hmm. And let me just find my timer here to give you 10 minutes, because I know sometimes, Hank, there is you get excited and may be likely to go over time here. So I'm about to. Are you ready to roll with your presentation? And as soon as you are, let me know, and then I can get you started with a timer.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
All right, so we have Porto versus Lisbon tonight in semi-final. Best place to live here in Portugal. Hank is going first. Hank Stalica representing Porto. Time begins now, Hank.
Okay, I need to share my screen here. I forgot to do that, so let me grab it. Right. Can I have an extra minute?
Well, you can have an extra. I'm going to start, and I'm going to start again. All right. I'm restarting my stopwatch. You let me know when that presentation is on the screen. In fact, we should all see it. There we go.
How's that? Good.
There's a slide with Porto. It's looking promising. So I'm going to start you again now.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for stopping by. Last time we talked, I had done my best to talk about the spirit of the North and what I thought was the best part of the North, being a little bit wooey. But talk about the spirit of how things are. So tonight what I want to do is I want to just get into factual things and talk about some of the more down-to-earth stuff about living, climate, culture, and costs in the North. And so I'm going to talk mostly about Porto, but I'm going to talk about the North in general, because Porto is a pretty big area and there's a lot to do in the North. It's not just Porto that's in the North. There's a lot of other things too. So we'll cover all of that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that climate, the culture, and the costs. And thank you for coming. So talking about a brief overview of Northern Portugal. Northern Portugal is home to diverse geographical features, including the rugged mountain ranges of the Penedès National Park in the northeast, which offers stunning natural beauty and ample opportunities for outdoor activities. The region's coastline stretches along the Atlantic Ocean, as you know, offering picturesque beaches, charming fishing villages, and vibrant coastal cities such as Viana do Castelo, Braga, and Aveiro. Overall, Northern Portugal's geographic location showcases the combination of coastal charm, river valleys, fertile plains, and mountainous terrains, making it a region of natural beauty and diverse landscapes. So let's talk about the climate in Porto. We'll start off with that. The climate of Porto, Portugal is influenced by its coastal location along the Atlantic Ocean, resulting in a pleasant Mediterranean climate. Porto experiences mild, relatively wet winters and warm, sunny summers, with the exception of the past winter. It rained for like 90 days straight. During the summer months of June, July, and August, Porto is going to enjoy warm temperatures with average highs ranging from 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. That's 68 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit freedom units. Occasionally, temperatures can exceed 30 degrees Celsius, which is 86 degrees in freedom units, but sea breezes help to keep the city comfortable. And I can speak to that personally in Viana do Castelo, where Connie and I live. Summer is generally a dry season and less rainfall. Winter in Porto is from December to February, mild compared to many other European cities. and very mild compared to California, where we're from. Average temperatures range between 5 and 14 degrees Celsius, which is 41 to 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Frost and snowfall are infrequent in Porto. I've never seen snowfall here in the times that I've been here, contributing to its year-round appeal as a destination. Moderate rainfall throughout the year, average annual precipitation of about 47 inches, 1,200 millimeters. Wettest months are December and January. Summer months tend to be drier. Spring and autumn in Porto are the best times of year, I think, with mild temperatures making them pleasant seasons to visit and to live. Spring brings flowers and green landscapes, lots of green in the north, while autumn showcases beautiful fall foliage. Porto's climate overall is characterized by mild winters, warm summers, moderate rainfall. The coastal location contributes to its pleasant weather and makes it an attractive destination for visitors seeking comfortable climate year-round, and for people who want to come live here. It's a fantastic place to be. So, next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about the culture in northern Portugal. So, it's rich, it's diverse, and it's deeply rooted in its history. And last time we talked, I did talk about the history of the North, and it goes back a long way. So there's traditions, there's regional heritage here that goes back many, many, many years. Here are some key aspects that characterize the culture of the region. If you're looking for culture, we have it. Historical and cultural heritage. Northern Portugal is home to numerous historical sites and architectural wonders. We've got Porto, of course, Guimarães and Braga, that are going to show you a blend of Roman, medieval, and Baroque architecture. From Porto's Ribeira district to Guimarães Historic Center, which is a World Heritage Site for UNESCO. And the Bom Jesus do Monte Sanctuary in Braga, the region is going to give you a wealth of cultural landmarks. If you're looking for culture, we have it. Northern Portugal has a variety of vibrant festivals and traditions celebrating the region's cultural identity. There's the São João Festival in Porto, held in June. That's a highlight and just happened to be held when Connie and I arrived here. It was very nice of them to set up a celebration just for our arrival. There's street parties, music, fireworks, and the tradition of headbutting each other with garlic flowers for good luck. Another fantastic tradition. The Romeria de Nossa Senhora the Anjonio in Viana do Castelo and the Festa de São João de Braga are also renowned celebrations. Northern Portugal preserves and showcases its rich folklore and traditional arts. Folk dances like the Vera and Politeiros, which are stick dancers, are performed during festivals and cultural events. Handicrafts such as pottery, embroidery, and filigree work are also prominent expressions of the region's cultural heritage. The region has strong religious and spiritual traditions for those of you who are into that sort of thing. There's historic churches, monasteries, pilgrimage sites such as Bom Jesus, as I mentioned before, and the Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage route. This attracts visitors and reflects the spiritual importance of the area. Of course, you can't talk about the culture without talking about music in Porto. Northern Portugal has its own musical traditions. The region is known for traditional folk music, which is often accompanied by instruments like the concertina, which is a type of accordion. Fado, the melancholic Portuguese music genre, is cherished and performed in various venues across the region. These aspects of culture in Northern Portugal contribute to a vibrant and distinct identity, an identity that is celebrated by all of us who live here. Visitors have the opportunity, and people who live here, to immerse themselves in the history, traditions, gastronomy, and artistic expressions, showcasing the pride and heritage of the local communities. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the gastronomy and wine. So Northern Portugal has a rich tapestry of flavors and traditional dishes. So you have hearty stews, fresh seafood, wines, and here are some highlights. And as pictured, you have francesinha, right, which is the iconic dish of Porto. And if you're going to order one of those, bring friends. The francesinha is a hearty sandwich. That is a sandwich, believe it or not, made with bread, meats such as ham, sausage, and roast beef, melted cheese, served with spicy tomato and a beer-based sauce, often accompanied by fries. It's amazing. Bacalhau, salted codfish, famous dish all across Portugal, but the north has its own take on it. It boasts a wide range of delicious versions of bacalhau, such as bacalhau gomes, the sam, casserole with codfish, potatoes, onions, and olives, and bacalhau com broa, codfish topped with bread and garlic crust. You have a wonderful soup called the caldo verde, comforting a traditional soup made with kale, potatoes, onions, and olive oil, garnished with slices of chorizo, and is commonly enjoyed during festive occasions or as a starter in a traditional meal. Vinho Verde is produced in the region of Minho in northern Portugal, which is a light and refreshing white wine, very famous up here, and pairs well with seafood and traditional dishes of the region. I must mention Pastel de Chaves. This traditional pastry is from Chaves, a town in the north of Portugal. It's a must try. So it's named after a town, not after keys. It consists of a flaky pastry filled with a savory combination of meat, beef, or chicken, seasoned with onions, garlic, and spices. So these are just a few examples of what you can expect up here. There's others. If I had more time, I could go into that. What? Sorry, Connie's trying to distracting me. So you can explore all the local restaurants. I mean, the running joke is that if you're a restaurant in Portugal, you better be good because you've got 10,000 people that are competing with you just down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be bad and stay in business. All right, so next couple of things I want to talk about are the cost of living in Portugal. And the cost of living in northern Portugal is generally lower compared to many other European countries and regions. And it's a downright steal when you compare it to the cost of living in California, where we're from. The cost of renting or buying property in northern Portugal is relatively affordable to many other major European cities. And
1 minute to go, Hank. Sorry to interrupt.
I'm running out of time.
1 minute to go.
Okay, 1 minute to go. So food and groceries, cost of food and groceries in northern Portugal is generally affordable. Transportation, the public transportation in northern Portugal is extensive, includes buses, metro systems, reasonably priced. You have Uber and other ride-sharing services. Cost of utilities is generally reasonable. Leisure and entertainment, you have all kinds of options when it comes to leisure and entertainment. You have attractions, museum, cultural sites, etc. So let me go ahead and wrap up here. So the key points that we talked about were climate, culture, and costs. And had I more time, I could go dig into the costs a bit more. But you can't go wrong by exploring the north of Portugal. It has everything that you could need in terms of healthcare, pleasant climate, and all those things. Visit us, and thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk.
Excellent. You stayed in that red spot beautifully. Middle of the stage there. Great job. Thank you, Hank, so much, representing Porto and the north of Portugal. Don't worry, there will be time to answer questions. We'll let these gentlemen have 10 minutes each. James, we'll come back to you. And that's an important part of the evening, is for you to ask you questions and have them answered by Trevor and Hank. And I think we should allow them a minute or two to sum up as well after the questioning part of the evening. And then we'll go to a rather harsh vote where somebody will be eliminated to face Jerry in early July for the final. So over to you, Trevor, if you want to. Cheers, Hank. Much appreciated. And thank you. I think your coach and trainer, Connie, was coming in from the side as well from time to time. So welcome to Connie as well. Let's go to Trevor. Trevor will get his presentation onto the screen now. And I will give you the same 10 minutes. Well, I'll give you a similar 10 minutes, not exactly the same 10 minutes, Trevor, of course. Philosophical, chronological issue there. Trevor, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. And thank you, Hank, for going first, because I think you covered all the highlights of the entire country, and that includes Lisbon. So appreciate that. So you've cut down my presentation greatly.
Right.
You're welcome.
What he said, plus this coming up. Right, I'm going to start. Are you ready to go then, Trevor? I'll start your 10 minutes.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. Yeah, absolutely. Looks great. All right,
perfect.
Off you go.
I
10 minutes. 10 minutes for you.
Yeah. Perfect. So I just wanted to carve out, I don't think a lot of people are really familiar with what the Lisbon district encompasses. Yes, Lisbon is in the Lisbon district. And then, of course, we have the Portuguese Riviera, and then we have Sintra, which is just another thing. But James is on tonight, and Ericeira, he's representing. And then we can continue to go up the coast. But Mafra is another really interesting place, and that's someplace we have got to get to. I think we're running about 100,000 people in that area now in Mafra. But as we just went to the May Porto meetup, we left Orient and we went up to Tagus. And just north of Villafranca de Zira is Caragudo. So we continue to go up towards Fatima on our way up to Porto. But there is a lot of little places. And so I think when we were talking about, a lot of people looking at central Lisbon, is a lot of people haven't really looked at these different areas, Caraguda, maybe Mafra, all sorts of places. So you still maintain what Hank will say, the Mediterranean climate. And that kind of varies as you get away from the coast and away from the water and move more inland, that disappears, and then you're getting into some serious heat. But so I just kind of wanted to map out for everybody. And I was going to kind of cover a little bit more today about the Mafra area in Caraguda. These are some areas where, again, you're kind of connected by trains, and some in Mafra, a little bit of mass transportation. But that's about the end of the lines. I mean, you can still take the interregional all the way to Tomar, but that's a couple of hour trip. So, but again, just kind of concentrating in the upper portion of the Lisbon district. So if you're looking in central, do check out the northern and eastern portion of the Lisbon district. Caraguda is going to have about 10,000 inhabitants. Like I said, Mafra, I think, is up to about 100,000 now. But you get to the outskirts between Mafra and Sintra, there's a lot of lovely places in this area. But just taking the bus from Orient up to Porto last month and seeing all the little cities as we're going up the Tagus, again, just don't dismiss them. And then you also have across the Tagus in this area by Samora Correge, and I'll butcher a bunch of names, but so you've got a bunch of different sections. Besides what Hank had covered, which is basically everything about the entire country, just a reminiscence of some pictures of what we've done in Sintra. And even if you don't go into Sintra, go a little north, go a little east, you're going to find just a magical place to go. We've been there so many times. It's kind of, we just catch the train up from Rossio every time we go up to Sintra, and you have every palace and castles and anything you want to see, and just gorgeous, gorgeous countryside. And then again, I want to emphasize, we do have the Portuguese Riviera here, and we've been spending a lot more time in Cascais over the last 6 weeks, and I've gotten a different affinity for the town, and it's really, really grown on us. So even that, all the way down to Estoril, Carcavelos Beach is, again, probably one of our favorite beaches in the area. But this is what you kind of expect for a given day. We did this anywhere from February 1st through the end of October. So you've got about 9 or 10 months, almost a year of this kind of weather. So you can't beat that. And then again, I will re-emphasize Lisbon, because we just explored a whole new area today with a new expat, Lori, in Intracampos, and we hadn't spent a lot of time there. And we went to lunch at Lucimar Gemini, and fantastic picanha. If you like picanha, go there. But again, it just kind of reminded us as we walked up to King Edward Park this morning and went to the gym and then walked over to Intracampos, of how small the center of Lisbon is, and just the areas. Living here for 18 months, we had not even spent any time in really Intracampos that much. And so you can go 1 or 2 barrios over and experience a completely different way of living, and living in a high rise compared to our low rise, and in the views, we were kind of astonished. And it's really wasn't that much more money per month. So again, something to consider if you do some good shopping in the Lisbon area for rental prices. But I did want to cover Mafra. Mafra is kind of interesting, and that's on our hit list. It's got the Mafra National Palace. It's got reasonable rents. It's got the Tapada Nacional de Mafra, which is the game reserve. It's got a lot of biking, hiking, mountain stuff. And I just did a quick hit on Idealista today, and it's probably about 35% cheaper than Lisbon, if maybe not almost 40, $980 a month for a T2 flat in Mafra, which is pretty remarkable. And you still have all the heritage, but you're a little bit more situated into nature. I believe from my first views is Mafra itself is actually quite a bit flatter than dealing in the city of Seven Hills. So definitely a location to check out. But so close to Ericeira and everything else. So you got a quick, easy trip to the beach. But definitely check out Mafra. And the last place I wanted to check out is, rather than going up the close or directly, is just going up the Tagus. Because like I said, we were in the bus going to Porto as usual. And it's just some beautiful countryside going up the Tagus. And I just, probably one of the last places before you start getting out of the much civilization. This Caraguda is still considered suburbs of Lisbon. But again, now we're at a T2 flat for 700 euros a month. And you're on the Camino, and you're only 100 kilometers from Fataba. So again, just covering the whole Lisbon district, whether you're looking at the Portuguese Riviera or you're looking at this north central, I'll stop sharing now, there is a lot to the Lisbon district that kind of encompasses other areas of the country. Central, when you start getting into the northeast and following the Tagus, again, you've got the whole west coast going up past Ericeira. So you have all these different areas, and a lot of people kind of concentrate on the Portuguese Riviera, Lisbon, kind of our Benfica and our other little suburbs. But you can go, I think Mafra's maybe 35 kilometers north. And there's a lot of places I was looking at helping recent expats, looking for really reasonable rents and still, being within driving distance, or if you're in Mafra, you're still looking at some mass transportation options, or even in Caraguda. So besides what Hank had to say, which was everything that's applicable to the Lisbon district, those are some other options if you were looking at our area. So you'll be close to the Lisbon facilities, and you'll get different ways of life, from living like you were in Porto or living like you were in Central. You're not going to get the Algarve here. That's not going to happen.
All right. It sounds like your presentation is done at that point there, Trevor, and you're ready to face some questions. You have got 1.5 minutes left. Would you prefer to face questions from here on in?
Questions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that. And we have Paul Richards joining us, who was knocked out earlier on, questioning the format tonight, saying there was a lot more time given to both Jerry and Paul. The way I'm seeing that is that was a couple of heavyweights battling it out. No disrespect, Jerry and Paul. And I'm not going to call you lightweights because that would be unfair, Hank and Trevor, but welter or middleweights with a shorter round length. However, the same. They both had 10 minutes to go out. They will face a similar amount of questions, and they will have some summing up time, which I'll keep to the same amount of time as well. So I think Jerry wants to say something at this point.
Yes, I do. I want to respond to that heavyweight comment, Carl, and with Paul on my side. At least we might be heavyweights, but at least we got hair.
All right. Like I said, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I was talking in terms of experience and stature within the community.
Oh, I see.
I
see.
Is that okay now?
Yeah.
Right.
Hair. Yes.
Okay. Right. All right. And thank you for your comments and questions, everybody, that were beginning to come in. Nubianet is over on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can ask questions in the chat there. And I know James had his hand up. We'll take some questions now, and there'll be a further summing up from our welterweights this evening to see who faces the heavyweight, Jerry, in a good way, in the final in early July. So, James, you were quick to want to ask a question, and I think, was it you or the other James who was keen to sing the praises of the Portuguese Riviera as well? So, James in Estoril, how are you this evening, and what are your questions?
Sorry, I didn't have a question. I was
Oh.
just applauding Hank and Trevor both.
Okay, I've got you now. Thank you very much. All right, sorry to put you on the spot like that. I do beg your pardon. So, and you're well, I take it, this evening in beautiful Estoril.
Absolutely.
Nice thumbs up.
Here on the Portuguese Riviera.
Quite. Okay, so I'm guessing who you're rooting for this evening. James the Slug is, I think, rooting for Trevor as well. And what we're particularly interested in here tonight, I think, like in politics.
Something very clear.
Okay.
I'm not rooting for anybody. I like both places, and I'm exploring the entire country. I love where I'm at. I'm also checking the Porto region, so watch out.
Watch out.
Porto.
Okay. Well, you're exactly the sort of person I wanted to talk about tonight, who will be pivotal in the decision that's made this evening. Some people clearly have an allegiance, don't they, to one or other. And some of these, what would be called swing voters, I suppose, in a political scenario. And James, you have positioned yourself in that condition, I think. So, Trevor,
I'm willing to talk deals.
Okay, Trevor and Hank, this is the sort of personality you should address yourself to this evening. Some people are quite entrenched in their views about whether they want to, and they've already made their mind up probably about Lisbon and the Lisbon areas, and Porto and the north. So any questions, anybody? Does anybody want to quiz Trevor or Hank a little bit further here? James, well, you're on. Did you have a question? Your newfound interest in Porto by the sound of it. Have you got questions for Hank?
None that I haven't already asked him personally. So that's one advantage to having that contact, in addition to great friendship. But yeah, we can talk about Porto anytime we want. I have been up to Espinho. That got left out. Some of the coastal areas of the north were not mentioned. And being a coastal guy in Ericeira, it's a lovely location in the northern part of the country. And I've been watching the climate very closely for about 6 months just to see. I'm learning that most of the Portuguese I have talked to don't line up with what the weather apps are telling me. So I don't know whether it's folklore or different experience or what it is. But anyway, it's much milder than I anticipated. Generally a little bit cooler, but not by a lot. 1 or 2 degrees basically. So.
Undecided then, and all to play for in your mind there, James the Slug. Thank you for joining us. And if we've got time, we'll find out who Diogo Cal was perhaps a little bit later on, not directly relevant to our conversation this evening. I think we have a hand up unless this is applause, but from Paul Richards. Good evening to you, Paul. Thank you for being here.
Paul. Hi, young man. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Look at that beautiful photograph. Is that one of yours?
It certainly is, yeah. In Alvo, of course.
Alvo. So what's your question to either...
My question is to Hank.
Yeah.
I recently visited Porto. I've just one question for him, and he may not be able to answer this. The other drivers who drive in Porto actually have a license. The drive is unbelievable.
No, that I can't answer because I don't need I'm never on the road. I'm using the excellent public transportation system everywhere. So I hear that they're problematic, the drivers and all that, but the metro just follows the trail or the tracks. So I never have to worry about any of those people.
Okay.
So,
do you take the gist of the question, though? I think what Paul might be saying there is, in his laid-back Algarve, the driving is a little less frenetic than he may have experienced up there in Porto. Can you address that?
I take the public transit everywhere. So when I'm crossing streets and stuff to get to the metro or whatever, people are respectful. So everybody always says that everybody's a horrible driver, and I think coming from California, where we have the worst drivers in the world, Portuguese drivers are fantastic. So it's hard for me to be able to say anything definitively.
And it might, of course, be morning and afternoon. After you've eaten a francesinha, I imagine your driving style is a little bit more laid back and leisurely when you've got one of those in your belly.
You're much more dangerous at that point because you're about to fall asleep or go into a
coma.
Yes,
that's right. The post francesinha.
Yes.
Coma that sometimes sets in for people. And Jean, can I get a go box for my francesinha leftovers? Yes, says Connie, but it's better hot, so split it with a friend. That's the way to do it, isn't it? Is 2 sets of cutlery and that massive pile of food on the plate. Paul, do you feel satisfied with the answer there? Do you have any further questions? And is there anything you want to say about Porto?
Well, my only experience was that I had 3 sat-navs in my car working, trying to get out to Porto, and it still took me half an hour to find a motorway. So thank you very much, but Porto's just not for me.
Okay, fair enough. I'm wondering if it's a bit like having Portuguese accountants, that you have 3 sat-navs and 3 Portuguese accountants, and none of them can agree with each other. Is that what happened?
No, they just couldn't. I just couldn't get out of Porto. I couldn't find a motorway. The signposts in Porto are terrible.
Okay, all right. So Paul, not a happy customer of Porto, which works well for Trevor, not so well for Hank. Others may want to come to the support of Porto this evening. Thank you, Paul, and love to the Algarve. Donovan, you have a question.
Hi, thank you. Great talks. I live in Los Angeles, and I'm curious about Porto's rent. Like, what would a 1-bedroom apartment generally cost in Porto? And thank you again.
It's a pleasure, Donovan. Thank you for an excellent question, because this is an issue, isn't it? People, and I think this was part of Trevor's strategy, was to address this thing about, oh, Lisbon's so expensive. And he found us an apartment in the Lisbon area for 700 euros a month there. Hank, how is it in Porto?
Well, it's going to depend. I mean, Porto is a large area. And so depending on where you're going to be, you know, if you're talking about Porto, the city itself, as opposed to the entire, you know, municipality, I guess, the closer to the city center you get, the more expensive it's going to be, for sure. You know, I was looking at Idealista recently too, and I think the closer you get to the city center, you know, 1 bedroom, you know, 1,300 euros a month or something like that. But the further you get out, and it depends, right? If you're in Bonfim or if you're over in Boa Vista or something like this, the prices are going to vary. And if you're talking about a T1 or T0, but the further you get out, certainly the more affordable that it gets. So there's a big range. But I would say it's hard to say what the average is, because are you talking about getting a luxury style T1 or something maybe a little bit more modest?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, you know, you could probably find something, you know, like I said, it's hard to say. 1,000 to 1,500 euros.
Let's put it another way. Would you say it's more or less expensive than Lisbon?
Depends. I found that I know I'm being political again, right? I'm being a politician. But you know, I was surprised because some time back when we were house hunting for, you know, where we were going to buy, I found that the prices have evened out a bit.
Right.
And it's not as drastic a difference. I was surprised. I think you might get more per meter here,
Okay.
But in terms of having an actual location to sit in, you know, to live in, you know, a T1 or T2 or whatever, it's a lot closer than it used to be.
Right. Okay. All right. Yes. Such is Porto's popularity, and cities, of course, do become victims of their own success as far as the inflation of rents go, and house prices, of course, too. Thank you for that. It was a question asked by Donovan, average price of a 1-bedroom apartment, and Ed and Sharon also wanted to know average price for a 2-bedroom flat in the Porto area. We get the gist. It's kind of like it's getting similar parity with Lisbon there, but of course, it depends where you want to be.
Can I add one more thing too? I mean, if you come over to Gaia where we live, you know, you can find T1s for 700. I just was looking on Idealista today. You know, we're just right across the river. You can find T1s for 700 euros, some T2s even.
Okay.
And when we first landed, we were on Avenida de República, across the street from the metro and everything that you would need. And our rent was 950 for a T2. That was about, I don't know, 900 square feet.
Yeah.
And you know, then they wanted to raise our rent by 200. So now I think along the Avenida, it's like for a T2 it would be like 1,100. But the further you get away from that, the cheaper it gets. So the further you get away from the city center, you know, the prices drop drastically.
Explain that to us if you would then, Hank, because a question from Alice is, what are the towns north or east of Porto that are nice to live in? Is it a lot more rainy than Lisbon area up there? So we've got 2 questions, climate and the other towns, the suburbs of Porto and Gaia. Can you explain this relationship and tell us about some of the towns north and east of Porto, please?
Yeah, sure. The further north you get, I think the cooler the overall weather gets, the overall temperature.
Yeah.
And you do get a little bit more rainy, I think, the further north you go. But the further north you go, the temperature drops just a little bit. and it's really popular up at Póvoa de Varzim, and Viana de Castelo and Vila de Conde. There's thriving expats communities all up and down the coast. And you can actually take the metro from downtown Porto all the way up to Póvoa de Varzim at the end. You can go halfway up the coast. And the further up you go, the more affordable it gets. And we're talking, right on the beach. You can get some T2. You can buy T2 places for 250,000 euros. I saw a couple of T3s for 300,000 when I was looking at Idealista today. Of course, you can spend a lot more than that depending on what your needs are. But in terms of those communities, they're smaller. They have more of a hometown feel to them, probably. It's more rural feeling, and the feeling of those towns is even more Portuguese, I think, than Porto is, because Porto is an international city, although it's very Portuguese here, of course. I adore Portuguese, so of course I'm living in Gaia. But it's even more so. I think Póvoa de Varzim is a place that I've been told that Portuguese go for their vacation. Up there. So it's you really have to get your feet on the ground to experience those towns, but they're wonderful. They're smaller, and the people are just as friendly as anywhere else in the north.
Great. Póvoa de Varzim, Espinho. What are the other names? Can we name check a few more of those towns? You mentioned another one.
Viana de Castelo, that's a little bit further north. Vila de Conde.
Vila de Conde, okay.
Vila de Conde is really popular with expats up there. If you go further inland to like Ponte Lima, that's a beautiful town. It's a little bit harder to get to, though, so you might need a car to get out there. But the other towns I was mentioning, you don't have to have a car at all. I mean, you can take public transit, just the metro, to get up and down there. It's fantastic.
And a good point made there, Hank. The metro in Porto does go up to Póvoa de Varzim, and the metro in Lisbon, of course, is a great metro system. No question about that. But you'll need to get on a bus or a train to go a long way out of town. There's not quite the range of the metro that you have in Porto, as far as I'm aware. Trevor, I don't know if you want to come back on that.
I would agree, but I don't think we really want to go any further than it takes us. So we're good.
Yeah. Well, hey, Trevor, can I ask you? Can I ask you the climate thing? I just remembered they asked about the climate, the rain compared to Lisbon. I think it rains more up here.
I do have something to say on that, and I do monitor the weather. And Jeff and I go back and forth. And as you know, we've been up there quite a bit in Porto. We've been up there every month, July through December last year. We were just there. And it is different. I've watched a video of Josh leaving Porto in a jacket and getting to Lisbon and wearing a t-shirt in the same morning. And we felt the same way. We'll leave Lisbon in the morning in a t-shirt, and we'll get to Porto and put on a jacket. It's not a huge difference, but there can be a little bit more wind, and there's a chill effect. And again, for us Southern California people, we're not quite acclimated to the NorCal's feeling so much. And so Lisbon's about as far, in Cascais in this area is about as far north as we can go. Again, otherwise it's down to the Algarve for us, but this is perfect. This is like LA weather in Lisbon. And we just feel as we go up the coast, and we just had some expats we met with from the Bay Area, and he basically just said the same thing. He goes, Porto, San Francisco, Lisbon's LA.
Very good comparison.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a standard I think people can relate to there. Let's stay with some comparisons, and I'm not sure if they will be as strong. Thanks, Trevor, for that, for coming in on that. And I think that answers your question there, Alice. If it doesn't, do pop something else in the chat or unmute yourself. Mentioning politics, but not wanting to go down a rabbit hole. Thank you, Alison and Michael, for that. Is there an awareness of societal conservative regions of citizens versus progressive? Here in the States, we talk of blue states and red states, for example. Now, Hank, you're known to be a man who doesn't veer away from politics or talking about politics. It is different, isn't it? There's not that same polarity as you might get in the United States. Can you talk a little bit about that from a Porto perspective?
People don't hate each other here.
Well, there you go.
I mean, you have this. It's really fascinating, right? And I love it to death, because you do have this rivalry between the North and the South here, right? Which is funny because it's only 3 hours from between Porto and Lisbon. But, you talk to people up here and say, hey, I'm going to Lisbon, and they'll say F Lisbon, but, and I'm sure the people in Lisbon say the same thing about Porto too, but it's not the vitriol hatred like we have in the United States. When you get here, your anxiety level and your I don't know, your anxiety, it just drops, because most of the people that come here tend to have at least some things in common. And if nothing else, you have a shared love of this country that allows you to leave everything else from the United States at the door and say, if you leave that behind, I'll leave that behind. Let's drink Superboc, which is clearly the best beer in all of Portugal.
Did you see what he did there? It was all going very well, balancing the whole sort of political landscape, and then has to say at the end, Superboc is the best beer, which is probably even more controversial than any of the political discussion we might have tonight. Thank you for that, Hank. Trevor, what about politics then in the capital? Is it in your face? Is it difficult, or are people a little bit more civilized and easygoing with their politics in Lisbon?
Well, we know we have there's a little different. Setúbal's got a little bit of a variation as far as from Lisbon, which is right down the road. So that's well known here in Lisbon about the politics in Setúbal. But I mean, here in Lisbon, I mean, you have the strikes, the teacher strikes, everything going on, protests from every political organization. They have the political billboards. The police, monitor the protests, and it's just actually a lovely parade and people getting together. You don't really feel it. It's just everybody out expressing their own political viewpoint.
Yeah,
and nobody takes it serious as far as anything other than that. There's nobody protesting the protests. There's just everybody like, hey, they're walking down the street doing their protest. Have a nice day.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. So I hope that puts your mind at rest there, Alison and Michael. Great question, but they're not the same levels of polarity and difficulty here in Portugal. Excellent question. Patrick, thank you. How much does the cost of living decrease the further you get away from the Lisbon centre? Let's stay with you, Trevor, on that. It does drop dramatically, doesn't it, as you move out from the trendiest parts of Lisbon?
Yeah. So we were just in a very, very nice expat place, and we were looking at, you're looking at 1,600 to 2,000 for a T2, and just fantastic with the doorman, security, and I mean, you don't need the security, but there's a doorman that handles the deliveries, does everything. Gorgeous buildings. So you're still seeing that for 1,600 to 2,200 area, and that's in the heart of it. And you can go up, but I mean, these are very nice apartments. And then you can go out just a hair out, and then you, like I showed you, to Mafra, or go to these other places, and you can drop that nearly in half.
Yeah.
So, and that's 35 kilometers difference for a 50% drop in rent.
Yeah, there you go. So I hope that answers your question. And the acronym T, it is something to get used to, but T basically means room. So a T0. Thank you, Anna, for your help in the chat tonight. T0 is a studio, and T1, one bedroom, and so on and so forth. Okay. Does Hank have any information about the international schools in Porto? Schooling, education. Do you know anything about that, Hank, up there?
I know a little bit about the University of Porto, and I know a little bit about the university down in Aveiro. I visited both of those campuses because I was on our scouting trips, because I'm a teacher back in the United States. Mm-hmm. And they have very thriving, famous international programs here at the college level. I can speak to the college level. Speaking to like the grade school level and all of that, I can't speak to that because I wasn't cursed with kids.
Right.
Anyway, but the college programs are exceptional. There's a fantastic school up in Minho, I think it is. I visited that campus as well, and they have excellent reputations for their international programs, especially for tech stuff. I was really surprised at how popular some of the tech programs are here that I was reading about. There's a lot of different tech schools. as well as, you know, the more traditional universities. So as far as that goes, you're covered. You're not going to be wanting for anything. I've heard good things secondhand about, you know, like grade schools and international, like high school and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
But I can't speak to it authoritatively.
Thank you.
Because
fair enough. And the STEAM and STEM agendas are well covered, aren't they, here in Portugal, for people to understand that acronym? Jerry, I think
absolutely.
something to say.
Yes, I actually put a note in on the chat. It's worth checking out the Brave Generation Academy. They have, I think, more than 20 schools now across Portugal. Everything is in English. They teach the American and the English curriculum at the very least, to my knowledge. And I think the question was about Porto. I think they have 3 academies in Porto. So I put the link on the chat there. It's worth checking them out. And we're actually in discussion with them about trying to do some deals with them. So if anyone's interested, let me know. And we'll see if we can get you some benefit.
Thank you for that, Jerry. Stephen, coming to the defense of Porto driving, I think it's all the drivers visiting from Lisbon and the Algarve that are the bane of the Porto roads. It's the visitors and the foreigners causing the problem. They're like you, Paul, visiting Porto that time. A question or some input from you, Paul, to balance Porto. The people, the experience was great. If you like busy places, you say, Paul, this is the place. Same with Lisbon, busy as any capital compared to the Algarve. James saying, and the expats Portugal Lisbon meetups are better. So that's a tick for Lisbon. Even Jerry came down to the Lisbon region for the meetup, and the president walked by. They're so good. Even the president has a quick look. Very good.
The president. I had a meeting earlier with the president. That's why he was there.
Oh, I see. Very good, Jerry. I had friends in high places. Well, friends in the highest of places here. President of the country or president of the local junta?
President of my book club association. And to be fair, I have been to the Porto meetup as well, and you know, that'll probably be the next one on my list.
Right. Okay. Yes. For the sake of balance, very well done there, Jerry. Porto Metro is not really a metro like the one in Lisbon. Okay, so perhaps it's more of a transit system and overground. But Connie says it is clean and runs on time and comes every couple of minutes, and it covers a lot of area up and down all of the Porto area. Thank you for all these comments. Does anybody want to put their hand up? We're going to come to the end of these questions, and we're going to start voting soon after a bit of a summing up from both welterweights, Trevor and Hank, this evening. Yes, Jerry in the comments there, been to Porto as well as to the Lisbon meetups. There is supposedly a very good Polytechnic in Tamar, the central area with a good computer program. Thank you very much for that, Gail. James, over to you. The slug.
Unmute. As I've been listening, just a few things in general from my experience being a year and a half here. One is in terms of rentals and even potentially purchasing properties. The general rule is the farther away you get from a city central area, the less expensive it's going to become. So if you get 30 to 40 minutes away, it's going to be, as stated, you know, maybe 30 to 50% cheaper. With the exception then, as you move to the coast, anywhere you go along the ocean, it's going to start going up a little bit too. So in terms of measuring, well, how far from Lisboa and how close to the coast, and anyway, all that can vary, but it's a general rule in my experience here. When it comes to the public transportation, I've ridden both fairly extensively, and they're quite different, but they're both very efficient in my experience. I can get anywhere I need to go in either place, just getting on the metro. And to address the public transportation to the Ericeira area, Mafra, there's 15 or 20 buses a day that make the route between Ericeira and Lisboa and go through Mafra. So, you know, that's not a problem. It can take a little time, but in terms of getting places, both places are great. And I lived in the San Francisco East Bay Area using the BART system, which was pretty good, but relative, these two are tops. So
Great to hear. Thank you very much for that, James. Not a lot in it tonight, I don't think. I'm not sensing a great deal of difference between our contenders tonight, Lisbon and Porto, with the swing voters anyway. But we shall see when the voting comes. Patrick Ryan, over to you for your question, please. Hi, Patrick.
Hello. I've been hearing a lot and reading a lot. Essentially, it may even be the same article about that right now, the Portugal real estate is hitting a boom and they're soon to get a bust. Has anybody seen the bust starting or appearing to begin?
There's a lot of heads shaking horizontally. No one's seeing any bust here yet. But let's talk to our featured gentleman this evening, Trevor.
Yeah, the European Union's already said it's overpriced, and you are seeing stuff. And you're not going to hear a newspaper article by a real estate agent saying that prices are going down. It's not going to happen.
Right.
It's just, you see all these reports. But I was just, like I said, we just came back from touring a fantastic T2 for the price that was comparable to what we were paying for our reasonable one from 2 years ago. And I'm going, you're kidding me. You just got this January of this year for this price. So be wary of what you read. What's going on the ground, I think, is a lot different. And this is just the city center. As you get out, things are quite a bit different. And you're just, we talked to real estate people before, and they just have this thing about this pricing, and because they get a percentage, right? So it's not like they're not invested in driving up real estate prices. But I think that they have kind of done parity between Lisbon and Porto, and we're seeing so much new renovation and construction in Lisbon that I'm going, at a certain point, the problem's always been supply. And now with the new law that the president just signed, we'll see how it goes, but they're making strides. But even before that, we're seeing so much work being done and renovations. I'm going, all it needs to be done, the properties are here, they just needed the money to rehab them. Yeah. And once they get going, you're going to see that supply versus demand start to hit equilibrium, which is going to overall bring prices down.
Good point, Trevor. Thank you very much. And that's where you would see the bust most readily, I would have thought, in Lisbon. And thank you for your insight there. Great question, Patrick. Do you want to add anything to that, Hank?
Yeah, there's a few things I would say. Of course, it's all anecdotal, but we just bought a place here. And so, I was been studying the real estate market, at least up here, for quite a bit. Well, and even before we bought a place up here, previously during all of our research for years now. And I would say a couple of things off the top of my head is, one, I think the rental market's just as hot as it ever was, because one of the reasons that we looked to finally buy was how much our landlord was going to up our rent. And I tried negotiating, and there was just no go. It was a rental increase of 20%, and I like our landlord. I mean, that was just market. But looking at the real estate prices, it seems to be that they're starting to top out, because when we first got here, you'd look on Idealista and other places, and you never saw price reductions, right? Or if as soon as something hit the market, it was gone. Now you're starting to see price reductions, and there are for sale signs up around town that have been there, longer than they ever were before. Normally they'd be up, very short time, but now you're starting to see them linger. And also, I seem to remember reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who's got more recent information than me, but I think that the Eurobar, they published their projections, and they're talking about, I think, the rest of the year leaving current interest rates where they're at, and then they're going to start making some cuts. So in terms of purchasing, I think it's starting to come down, and you're hitting that equilibrium, just like Trevor was saying. But the rental market still seems to be pretty hot. But I suspect that'll come down too once the interest rates start coming down and people can start affording loans again. So we'll see.
Thank you, Hank. And not much in it then on that note. And as so often happens with these, we tend to talk about our love of Portugal. rather than trying to decide and discover which is best. And on this instance tonight, whether it's Lisbon and the surrounding areas or Porto and the north of Portugal. That is the question tonight. Which of those is the best, and which arguments have you been persuaded by this evening? Just one more question then. And of course, after we've done the voting and decided who will face Jerry in July, you can ask all your other questions. You know, our main aim, of course, is to help you get your questions answered wherever they are and wherever you want to be in Portugal. So we'll have some social time after the voting is done and the decision has been made by you, our voters, this evening. But this last question, what I thought was quite interesting, and it might differentiate Lisbon from Porto. And it's David's question. I understand that closer to the city centre that the real estate costs are more, but for frequent visiting to the centre, does the cost of the metro add up to the outer areas being more expensive? So this would be a phenomenon, I guess, you would see in London or certain cities in America, where as real estate agents get wise to the fact that places are handy on public transport, they put the prices up. That's not happening here yet, is it? Let's ask Trevor. From the nodding of the heads or the shaking of the heads, not happening in Lisbon, Trevor.
No, it's just an opportunity cost because they realize you're going to be on the public transportation for a longer period of time. And so hence you're giving up that opportunity and you're going to pay less. So that's the whole difference. It doesn't cost you anymore to go from the end of the line into town than it does to go 2 stops over in the central, same cost. So you would think that, you know, it's just the fact that people go, hey, it's going to take me 45 minutes to get to work. Oh, it's going to take me 5 minutes to get to work. It's the same price on the same metro ticket. So yeah, there's no differentiation between that. You pay the same thing, but when you start going out to the end of the lines, your rents drop. And we've thought about that, but that's what you give up, right? If I want to go to these places that are in the town, and I want to walk out my front door and walk there in 10 minutes versus I want to go get on the metro and 30 minutes later get there and walk 10. It's just about your opportunity costs.
Thank you, Trevor. What about you, Hank? Final question from our audience tonight.
Up here, the further you travel on the metro, the more it will cost you. But they have all kinds of programs here to offset that cost, like monthly passes, discounts for seniors, and things like that. But even then, the cost is so reasonable compared to what we were used to in the United States. It's trivial. Yeah. You know, Connie and I travel all over the place, meeting people. You know, we go up and down the coast. I think maybe each month we spend maybe 20 euros or something, which would have been 1 BART ride to the airport from where we lived, you know. And so it's for Portuguese people, of course, it's more consequential, but for us, it's trivial. You know, you just get an and app on your phone, you swipe, you go wherever you go, and you don't have to worry about it.
But it's not adding to the prices down the line.
Well, if you do go further, the further your trip you take, the longer trip you take, it will cost you more. Yeah,
sure, but it's not adding to the property prices. The fact that it's so well connected.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
It would appear not. I think, and just as you mentioned there, you can buy a card which will let you travel anywhere. I think, right, for around 40 euros on that line, or those lines, those public transport lines and buses and so on.
They have all kinds of options for all kinds of price points to help you out in terms of public transit. But it's so affordable. I hate to say cheap. It's not going to be a huge impact on your finances.
Your trainer is saying 30 or 40 euros, depending on which zones you use for Porto. That's very good value. Trevor, what's the card cost in Lisbon for the public transport systems?
We don't use it. I think it's 40, and I don't know if that's just the metro and buses. But James is going to answer this question. But
he is,
we just do the Zap and Go because we don't use it that often. But we also get the ferry in the urban trains.
Gotcha.
So it's just very effective. And if you're 65, it's free.
Wow, James,
that's cool. That's cool.
That is very cool, isn't it? And applies, I think, both cities. James, your cost comparison, then finally from our audience this evening.
Could I make a suggestion? Hi. Oh. Hello.
Of course you can, Jacqueline.
One of the things that we really thought about was the exchange rate at the time that we bought our property.
Yeah.
And the exchange rate was not that great. So even though ostensibly prices have gone up, the dollar is stronger than when we bought. So that was kind of something to consider. What is the exchange rate at the time that you're purchasing?
Okay, thank you for that. And keep in touch with Spartan FX about that, of course. James, you were going to talk to us. Thank you, Jacqueline, for that. James, you're going to talk to us about cost comparisons, I think, for the capital and for Porto.
Well, I'm not as familiar with costs in Porto, but Hank represented that as accurately as I could make sense of the system being brand new to me. The Lisboa region, which Trevor showed, is huge. It covers a massive amount of area. Within that region, it's all the public transportation is managed by the Lisboa district. So whether you're living in Ericeira or Mafra or all the way down, I think to Setúbal is included in this thing. So you can buy a monthly pass, full cost, 40 euros for a calendar month, for unlimited access to every single piece of public transportation that's available to you. The metro, the bus, not trains that leave the area, but anything that moves you around within the Lisboa region, you just get a card and you put it on the meter and it just ticks it off for a calendar month.
The tram and the ferries, isn't that fantastic?
Everything. And the benefit to seniors, and that's over, I guess they call it over 65, that rate goes to 20 euros. So it's half the amount for all the same access. I think that's brilliant in terms of being able to get around using public transportation. And it's really just about how much time you have. So
right. Thank you for that. I can't put this off any longer. We're going to find out who goes through. Thank you, James. Thank you, Jacqueline, for your input there. We're going to find out now who meets heavyweight Jerry in the July bout, the final. And I'm going to give you both a max. You don't have to use all this time, but I'm going to give you both, so it's fair, 2 minutes each to sum up. You might want to readdress some of the points that have come up subsequent to your presentations. Let's go with Trevor first then. Your 2 minutes begins now. And after this, and after Hank's had a chance to speak as well, we will vote, everybody. So take it away, Trevor. Please sum up.
Oh, that's interesting because we just got back from 3 nights in Porto. Took my mom up and we met with Hank and Connie and we had the whole meetup. And as we said, if we ever leave Lisbon, we're going to Porto. So it's just one of those things. And we've spent enough time between the two to know that Lisbon's for us. But at a certain point, you've been here for a few years, you might go, hey, I want to change a pace and I want to go spend a year or 2 in Porto. But for us, for right now, it's between Lisbon and Cascais on a daily basis and Estoril and that whole thing, and even exploring down to Setúbal. There's too much in this area for us to exhaust before we're ready to go, okay, let's go up north. But yeah, either one, it just depends on where you are in your journey and what you're familiar with. And either way, you can't go wrong. They're both fantastic places.
What a wonderful summing up. Thank you for that, Trevor. This is definitely going to be one of those matches where the two contestants hug each other straight away, whatever the result. Okay.
Over a super buck.
That's right. No
the best beer in the country.
Okay, somebody will pick up on that bait soon enough. All right, let's go to Hank then. You have a maximum of 2 minutes, Hank, starting now.
To follow up what Trevor said, a big hug to my friends and brothers and sisters in Lisbon. My favorite place in all of Portugal is the Praça de Comercial because of the first picture I ever saw of Portugal. It's beautiful down there. But I will say, for me, it comes down to people and the people that you're going to meet. There was a poll that was held by International Living at a certain point. They were asking expats from all different types of countries, what was the best part of the country, at least what are you struggling with? And they said that meeting or becoming friends with locals was very difficult. And they said the average time in Portugal was like a year before you made a Portuguese friend. I don't know what those people were experiencing, because up here I have several Portuguese friends. The people up here, the spirit of the people up here, if you make any effort whatsoever, you're going to make friends, you're going to make connections, whether it's in the expat community or whether it's with our Portuguese brothers and sisters. They are amazingly welcoming, they're amazingly warm, and they have this live and let live attitude and this joy in welcoming you if you even try just a little bit to reach out to people. So for me, Portugal is a wonderful place, but at the end of the day, what are you coming to Portugal for? And that's what's going to make your decision. For me, it was, in Connie, it was to meet people, to experience culture, and to make friends with locals, learn the language, all those sorts of things. And it is incredibly easy to do up here. In the weather. Connie says in the weather.
That's not a towel coming in. That's Connie with an extra comment there. Fantastic. That brings you up to your 2 minutes pretty much anyway. Great job, Hank. Great job, Trevor. Fantastic this evening. There's nothing in it as far as I'm concerned, but I'm not voting. You are. The Dream Team session will start at 9, so we'll have a few minutes after the voting to ask a few more questions and congratulate our winner and runner-up tonight. But now I am going to launch the vote, so get your fingers ready and get your eyes on the screen here, if you will, as I launch the voting now. Who's going to go through and face Jerry in July? Hank, that's beautiful. That's worth a couple of extra votes there. I'm launching now. Keep it up. Oh, failed to start poll. Another poll has started. Oh, no, okay, it has worked. And it's neck and neck, although Porto is pulling away. On my screen, it says failed to start poll, but there's definitely something happening behind the scenes here. And it's 50-50 neck and neck. It's those, look at, would you believe it? The most popular numbers in the elections at the moment seem to be 52 and 48, don't they? And that's exactly where we are with Lisbon at the moment. 52 and Porto at 48. Just a cigarette paper between them, quite frankly. So has everybody voted? Please yes, we have 100%. Everybody, would you believe it? Just as I'm asking that question, and I'm asking, what do we do now? We didn't think this was going to happen. 100% voting has occurred, which is very unusual in elections, as we know. And Lisbon has 50%. It's going to have to be a bare knuckle fight then, isn't it? Obviously.
Yeah.
Is that right, Jerry? Do we get them together?
Yeah. I can take them. I can take them both on with one hand behind my back.
See.
No problem at all.
The bare knuckle fight is you against those two. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Honest. Oh, we have got another vote has just come in.
One more just came in.
Who was that?
That was Hank.
Well, Shannon mysteriously appeared.
Yeah.
I'm not logged in, so I have to vote. I'm adding my vote.
Vote. So it wasn't Shannon. Good evening to you, Shannon. Lovely to see you there. The news just in there. An extra vote has come in. There won't be any bare knuckle fighting. Lisbon has it. It's just that vote has just disappeared. I don't know what's going on with Zoom, but we did have a vote for Lisbon, which made it 51-49. So that was extremely close, as I suspected it might be. That vote just disappeared again, but it was there on the screen. I think my official adjudicator will agree and back me up there. Jerry, it looks... Oh, someone's messing with me now because it says Porto 51. I think we should go to the bare knuckle fighting and get this white shirt of mine spattered with the blood of Lisbon or Porto expats here. We've got Porto. Somebody's withdrawn their vote and voted for Porto. So we have Porto currently at 51% and Lisbon at 49%. Jerry, do you want to add anything at this tense moment?
Yes, I think we should check and see how Hank is being is he a co-host? Is that how he's doing this?
With his tech know-how, is he using that? He said, look no hands, look no hands.
Yeah, right.
The 51% there. But it's so close. That's the problem here tonight, isn't it? Whoever goes away from this tonight has done a great job. And there's nothing between these two gents this evening, between Lisbon and Porto. But I'm going to go with what's on my screen, as is the way with elections. The result on the screen I was going to say black and white. It's in black, blue, and white. Porto at 51% and Lisbon at 49%.
It says there's three
Former
people
contestant
left.
Paul is not happy about this either. So controversy in the air. I thought it would be about Sagres and Superpop. As it turns out, it is Porto who've gone through and will face Jerry in July. Jerry, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think, look, guys, great job, and there really isn't very much in it. But I think that's probably makes the final more interesting, because Lisbon tends to be, everything is sort of focused around the city of Lisbon, whereas Porto, we're talking about north of Portugal. So now we're talking about a region of Portugal in the north compared to the region in the central. And I think that could be quite interesting.
Excellent stuff. Well done. Well, commiserations to you, Trevor, and congratulations to you, Hank. Well done, mate.
Well fought, Trevor. And there's still 3 people who haven't voted. 2 people.
It's too late. It's
too late. It's closed.
We'll be here all evening.
Voter suppression by Carl.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate position we find ourselves in, us referees in such matters, but that's what we're going with. Porto are victorious tonight.
That should have been Porto president of the, Pinto da Costa. He bought the referees probably here.
I resent that. I don't even know who you're talking about, Anna. Let alone taking any money. I don't recognize that.
Who is putting up this poll? Who's messing around with
It's well known in Portugal that the president of Porto Football Club is known for cheating, so that's why.
Okay.
Allegedly so. I should add.
Of course, allegedly.
Yeah. How much did you get, Carl? And are you splitting it with all of us?
Well, let's put it this way. I've got a Porto season ticket now, which I'm looking forward to. No, I'm kidding, everybody. That was a joke. Well done. Commiserations to you, Trevor. Great job.
Well done, Trevor. Well fought.
Yeah. Really good job.
Can
Trevor,
I just say a little
Lisbon.
joke?
Please do, Anna.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. In Portugal, there's a big rivalry between Lisbon and Porto, of course. So we always say Porto people work to earn money and Lisbon people spend it. So we are the lucky ones down here.
There is it's like north-south rivalries the world over, isn't it?
Yeah.
It definitely happens. And no one mentioned swearing. I think the Porto people are known for more swearing. Yeah.
You're damn right.
Contest, they win.
One year. I mean, Benfica is the national champion. Let's just get that straight.
Yeah.
Let's just
FC
Porto, not Benfica.
All right. Well done, Trevor. I don't know if you want to say a few words.
Nope. Just thanks. But Hank, super buck on you, buddy.
Yeah, that's
fair enough. That's fair enough.
That's another deal we should be talking about. How much does Hank get paid by Superboc every time he gets a mention?
Now you mention it, yes, of course. Do you want to do that shot where you're actually drinking out the bottle as well, Hank, to get the bonus points?
I thought about doing it, but I didn't buy